In the silence of the night, when the world forgets your name, a fire still burns inside you. Every scar, every failure, every laugh thrown against you, it has shaped you into something unshakable. You are not broken. You are forged, stronger, sharper, louder than the whispers that tried to erase you. This isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. This is the moment your shadows turn into your stage and your voice drowns out every doubt. Shadows tried to cage you to hide the fire burning inside. Every whisper in the dark, every subtle insult, every doubt thrown like a stone, it was all meant to convince you that you were small, invisible, powerless. For a moment, the weight pressed down heavy and suffocating, and yes, you might have believed their darkness could swallow you whole. But shadows cannot exist without light. Every corner they tried to darken only hinted at the spark they could never touch, the energy growing fiercer inside you, waiting to explode. Every whisper wasn't random. They were strategists, plotting, hunting. Their goal was to confuse you, to make you doubt yourself, to make you bend. And yet you did something they could never anticipate. You listened, quiet, calculating, learning. Every move they made, you observed. Every trap they set, you cataloged. You walked through their darkness with a grin forming on your lips, a laugh rising in your chest because you knew the storm was building and it was yours to unleash. The shadows were no longer walls. They were your classroom, your forge, your silent battlefield. They thought the shadows would be enough to hide you. They believed if they whispered long enough in the dark, you would never see the truth. The shadows were not just words, they were traps, carefully placed, designed to convince you that you were smaller than you really were. Every whisper was a stone, every insult a brick, every doubt a piece of the cage they tried to build around you. And for a while you might have felt the weight of it. You might have believed that this prison of shadows was real. But the thing they never understood is that shadows cannot exist without light. And if shadows exist, it only means there is a source of light hidden somewhere close to you. You see, those whispers were not random noise. They were strategy. They wanted you confused, cornered, weak. They wanted you to believe their words mattered more than your truth. But you listened in silence. You let them think their game was working, while inside you were studying every move. You were learning their patterns. You were memorizing their weapons. The shadows were not walls. They were lessons. They were the dark classroom where you built your own strength. Every cruel word taught you patience. Every dismissal sharpened your focus. Every betrayal carved new layers of resilience inside you. They thought the shadows would drown you, but you were learning to swim in their darkness. And when you realized that, when you finally understood what was happening, you stopped fearing the whispers. You began to see through them. You began to see that the shadows they tried to cage you in were paper walls, fragile and empty, only strong if you believed in them. But once you opened your eyes, once you stood up inside that darkness, you realized the truth. They had given you the greatest gift without knowing it. They had forced you into silence, and silence became your weapon. They had thrown you into shadows, and shadows sharpened your vision. They had tried to bury you, but the soil they covered you in became the ground where your roots dug deeper. That is the beauty of shadow. They are never permanent. They shift, they change, they fade. But the strength you forged inside them, that is permanent. That is yours forever. The shadows they built around you were meant to break you, but instead they trained you. They thought you would beg for escape, But you turned the prison into your empire. You learned to walk blindfolded, to listen when no one else was paying attention, to grow when nobody believed you could. The shadows did not kill you. They gave birth to you. And now, when you step out of that darkness, when you rise into the light, they will not recognize you. They will whisper again. They will try again, but this time it will not work. Because you know what shadows are now. You know how fragile they are. And when they whisper, when they plot, when they gather in the dark again, you will smile because nothing escapes you anymore. Their whispers only remind you of how far you've come, how powerful you've become, and how unshakable you truly are. Laughter, such a simple sound, but in your story it became something terrifying. Not the soft laughter of joy, not the easy laughter of comedy, but the kind that erupts from the deepest corners of survival. The kind that isn't born from happiness but from revelation. The day you laughed, really laughed, was the day they knew they had lost. Because it wasn't madness, it was freedom. It was the moment you realized that their whispers could no longer control you. Their shadows could no longer touch you, and their attempts to chain you had only made you sharper. You see, your laughter was not about finding things funny. It was a declaration, a rebellion that ripped through their comfort. When you laughed, it was as if you shattered the silence they thought would suffocate you. The sound carried a message. You had heard every whisper, every insult, every poisonous word thrown behind your back, and you no longer cared. That laugh was your victory song. It was the echo of chains snapping, of fear dissolving, of weakness burning away. It was the sound of someone who had been underestimated for far too long, finally realizing their own power. And that laugh haunted them. It still does, because laughter is not what they expected from you. They expected you to break, to cry, to beg to stay down. But laughter was unpredictable. It was dangerous. It was a signal that you had reached a place inside yourself where pain no longer defeated you. It fueled you. You had crossed the line between victim and force. And once you crossed that line, you never return. Imagine the way they felt, hearing it. Imagine the confusion that ran through them. Because whispers are only powerful when the target believes them. But when you laugh, you prove that you see through the illusion. You prove that their words are empty. You prove that nothing they say, nothing they do has the ability to shake you anymore. And that terrifies them. Because once someone can laugh in the face of shadows, they become untouchable. Laughter in your story is not weakness. It's not insanity. It's strength dressed as chaos. It's resilience wrapped in unpredictability. When you laugh, you are telling the world that the pain they thought would destroy you only made you stronger. That the darkness they forced on you only sharpened your vision. That the scars they carved into you have become your armor. You laugh not because life is easy, but because life tried to break you and failed. That is the kind of laugh no one forgets. And the more you laugh, the more they realize they can't win. Their whispers grow louder, more desperate, but your laughter drowns them out. Their shadows spread wider, but your laughter cuts through them like a blade. That sound, your sound, becomes their nightmare. Because nothing is more frightening than the person they thought was weak, now standing unbroken, smiling, laughing, untouchable. Your laughter is free. It's proof that you've taken back control of your story. It's proof that no matter what they do in the dark, you will always rise louder, stronger, and brighter. And that's the twist they never saw coming. They thought whispers were enough. They thought shadows were enough. But the moment you laughed, the game was over. Because you weren't afraid anymore. You had become something they could never silence. And so you laugh not because you forgot the pain, not because you ignore the scars, but because you know the truth. The whispers will always be there, but your laughter will always be loud. Yes, they broke you. Don't hide it. Don't deny it. There were nights when the weight was unbearable, when the whispers turned into echoes so loud they lived inside your head. You felt the sting of betrayal, the collapse of trust, the shattering of dreams you once held close. You know what it feels like to walk through life with scars that no one sees but you feel every second. Being broken is not a metaphor to you. It was your reality. Pieces of your heart scattered, pieces of your hope gone. You were left to gather what was left in silence while the world carried on as if nothing happened. But here's the truth they never tell you. Broken does not mean destroyed. Broken is transformation. Broken is evolution. Broken is the proof that you lived, that you risked, that you felt, and even though you fell to the ground in pieces, you still found the courage to stand again. Think of glass shattering, sharp, dangerous, unrecognizable. But those pieces, when put under light, reflect something new, something brilliant, something the world never expected to see. That was you. The brokenness didn't kill you, it revealed you. When they broke you, they thought that was the end. They thought you would stay on the ground, begging for help, begging for mercy, begging for someone to save you. But you didn't. You took every shattered piece, every fragment of your soul, and you stitched it together with fire. You stitched it with rage. You stitched it with patience, discipline, and pain turned into power. And when you rose, you weren't the same person anymore. You were sharper, harder, stronger. They didn't just break you, they reforged you into something untouchable. Think about it. What can they possibly do to you now? The worst already happened. You've already been cut, scarred, bled, and bent until your bones ached. You've already felt the sting of being underestimated, of being overlooked, of being thrown aside like nothing. And yet here you are, still breathing, still walking, still laughing louder than the whispers. That means their power is gone, because once a person survives the breaking, there's nothing left to fear. What more can they take? What more can they break? You already survived the storm they swore would drown you. That's why being broken is dangerous, not for you, but for them. Because a broken person who chooses to rise becomes unstoppable. You carry knowledge others don't. You carry strength most will never touch. You've walked through fire barefoot, and now the flames don't burn you. You've fallen from cliffs and still found a way to crawl back to the top. You've been dragged into darkness, and instead of dying in it, you built your throne there. They cannot destroy what has already rebuilt itself stronger than before. Your scars are your armor now. Every line across your soul is a reminder that you've been through battles they could never imagine. And the next time they whisper, the next time they try to build shadows around you, they'll see it doesn't work anymore. Because you've learned something priceless. Broken is not the end. Broken is the beginning. Broken is where the old you died and the new you, the untouchable you, was born. So yes, you were broken, but you were never destroyed. In fact, the very act of breaking was what gave birth to the version of you standing here today. The version that listens to whispers, walks through shadows, and laughs louder than ever before. Revenge has always been misunderstood. People think it's loud, chaotic, violent. They imagine fire and fury, screaming battles, and shattered glass. But that's not the kind of revenge that lasts. The loud kind burns out. The loud kind draws too much attention. The loud kind is sloppy. The real revenge, the kind that terrifies your enemies to their core, is silent. It's patient. It's controlled. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives like a shadow in the night. Quiet, unstoppable, undeniable. Your silence was not weakness. It was your weapon. When you stopped answering them, when you stopped explaining yourself, when you stopped chasing their validation, you stripped them of their power. They wanted you to react, to defend yourself, to scream and cry and prove them right. But you didn't. You stayed silent. You went quiet. You let their whispers echo in an empty room where your presence was absent. And that silence, it shook them more than any words ever could. Because silence forces people to hear their own noise. Silence exposes the hollowness of their whisper. Silence leaves them choking on the very shadows they created. And in that silence you were working. While they thought you had disappeared, you were building. While they thought they had buried you, you were grown. While they wasted energy tearing you down, you were conserving yours, sharpening it into something lethal. Silent revenge is not about destroying them. It's about outlasting them. It's about living so unapologetically, so powerfully that your very existence becomes their punishment. You don't have to scream, "I won." You just have to live in a way that makes them realize you did. There is nothing more unsettling than seeing the person you tried to break walk past you unbothered, unscarred, unshaken, carrying the kind of calm that feels like a storm waiting to explode. That calm, that silence, is where your power lives. You don't waste time proving your worth to people who couldn't see it in the first place. You don't waste energy explaining your scars to those who mocked them. You don't seek revenge through destruction. You seek revenge through evolution. You transform so completely that the whispers that once cut you now sound laughable. And that transformation, that's the real strike. They'll see you rising. They'll watch you succeed in places they never thought you'd reach. They'll hear your name in conversations they're not invited to. And they'll realize too late that while they were whispering in shadows, you were preparing your empire. That's why silent revenge is the sharpest blade. It doesn't need blood. It doesn't need fire. It doesn't even need conflict. It needs only patience, growth, and the kind of strength that makes their entire strategy collapse on itself. Silent revenge is walking into the same rooms they doubted you'd ever enter. Not to announce your arrival, but to let your presence speak for itself. It's achieving so much, becoming so much that their whispers don't just sound small, they sound absurd. It's not about shouting, "You were wrong." It's about living in a way that forces them to choke on those words themselves. So you stay silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because your life is saying everything for you. Every step you take is revenge. Every success you achieve is revenge. Every time you laugh louder than their whispers, you prove that they lost the moment you chose silence. Silent revenge is the most brutal of all, because it leaves them with nothing. No response, no closure, no control. Just the deafening sound of your silence and the sight of you becoming everything they swore you'd never be. There comes a point when silence is no longer enough. You stand before the mirror, and for the first time you see yourself clearly. Not the image they painted of you, not the broken reflection they tried to convince you was real, but you, the raw, scarred, unshakable version of yourself that emerged from everything they threw at you. And that moment changes everything. They never wanted you to find that mirror. That's why they whispered in the dark. That's why they built shadows around you. Because if you ever stopped listening to them and started looking at yourself, they knew their power would vanish. The mirror was dangerous, not because of what it showed, but because of what it reminded you: that you've survived, that you've endured, that you are not the weak, fragile being they described, but a storm wearing human skin. When you looked into that reflection, you didn't just see your face, you saw every scar, every wound, every night you spent doubting yourself, and every morning you got up anyway. You saw the fire in your eyes that no amount of whispers could ever extinguish. You saw the weight of pain, yes, but also the strength that came from carrying it this far. That reflection wasn't broken, it was reforged. And when you saw it, you realized the truth. They could lie to the world about you, but they could never lie to the mirror. That's why they feared this moment. They wanted you blind, lost in shadow. They wanted you chasing approval so desperately that you never stopped long enough to see your own strength. But once you stood in front of that mirror and recognized who you truly were, the chains broke. Because when you finally accept yourself, not the version they created, but the real one, you become untouchable. Their whispers can't pierce you anymore because you've already faced the harshest critic yourself, and you survived that battle. Look deeper into that reflection. Do you see the eyes? They're not the same eyes that once begged for understanding. They're sharper now, colder, more alive. They've seen betrayal and still learned to trust again, but this time in the only person who never left you. That's the secret the mirror shows. You were never powerless. You were never helpless. You just hadn't recognized your own reflection yet. That reflection is what terrifies them. Because once you see who you really are, they can never convince you otherwise. Once you've looked in the mirror and embraced every scar as proof of survival, their words become meaningless. They can whisper about your past, but you've already turned it into your armor. They can whisper about your flaws, but you've already carved strength from them. They can whisper about your failures, but you've already built victories on their ashes. And when you walk away from that mirror, you're no longer the same. You carry yourself differently. You move different. You no longer flinch when they whisper, because you know exactly who you are and what you're capable of. The mirror gave you something they can't take away. Certainty. Certainty that you are more than the shadows. Certainty that nothing escapes you now. That's why they feared the mirror. Because once you found it, once you faced it, once you claimed it, you became unstoppable. They can whisper forever in their shadows, but you'll always laugh louder. Because you've already seen the truth staring back at you. And the truth is stronger than their lies.